Alright, video gamers, we have successfully, here, let me open the game so it plays the music. We have successfully concluded our relatively quick journey through Eriksholm, The Stolen Dream, a video game that took us, like 8 hours to finish, something like that. Pretty decent time for a game that I wanted to be short. It's definitely in the short category. This is one of those games that I wish that I had, I wish I was like a real reviewer, so I could actually, play the game and then sit down and like think about it and get some cohesive thoughts about it, right? Because it's a bit of an interesting title for me. It's one of these like weird games you play where it's like this game leaves very little impression to me, but it feels very competently made. It exists in like a weird spectrum where it's like, is this a very well made game? Yeah. Was I like bored during the game? Not really. Did it leave any remote lasting impression at all? No. Like, this is one of those games that like I'll practically forget about playing this game in like a week from now. So it sits in a bit of like a weird place in my head, right, where it's like they've done a lot of good things with the game, and they've created an interesting world, and the characters are overall interesting, and the gameplay is fine, but like as a package, it doesn't feel like it does much necessarily, I guess. One thing to note is that 42% of people that have bought the game, I finished it. Like 42% of people have the last achievement in the game, so that's pretty good. And 32% of people have the find 75% of all collectibles. I mean, those are pretty impressive stats at least. It means that like over half the people that purchase the game, or slightly less than half, actually finish it. So that's pretty good. But you might maybe expect that from a game that is this short and also this expensive, I guess. It probably targets a very specific audience of people, and those people probably specifically like games like this. So I think that makes sense. But I think I don't know where to start. I think starting from like a story perspective, and we can maybe tie cinematics into that. The story in this game is one of those stories where it feels like they understand what pieces they need to tell a cohesive and compelling story, but they either don't have time or they didn't feel the necessity to include all of those pieces in the game, right? Like, you begin the game and it's one of these. So let's maybe first of all say that like the cutscenes in the game are incredible. They're like extremely well acted. They're super high fidelity. They look extremely realistic. Maybe some of the most realistic stuff I've seen in any game ever. Obviously, stuff like The Last of Us, so that's a budget of like 300 million. I would say has this beat, but for whatever budget this game had, really good cinematics. But I think that comes at the price of like they can only have these cinematics, and I'm assuming this was a budgetary constraint. They can only have these cinematics in a few parts of the game. So for me, it ends up feeling a little bit bait and switchy for trailers, right? Like, I was only interested in this game because I saw it at like the Summer Game Fest or whatever, and they had these insane high quality cinematics. And then you get to the game and it's like there's like 5 of them, across 8 hours. Maybe like, I don't know, 15 minutes of those high quality cinematics. There's a lot of cutscenes in the game, right? A lot of moments where the characters are talking to each other, but extremely few of them are those super high fidelity cinematics. And I think that feels a bit bait and switch and a bit weird for me from a narrative perspective, right? It's like if you're doing those cinematics, I feel like you should probably do them for all the important moments, and you should probably do them more often. Otherwise, it feels like I don't know. It feels like they're only in the game so you can kind of like sell the game a little bit, I guess. Maybe it's a proof of concept. I don't know, but yeah, it ends up feeling a little bit weird to me. It kind of feels like I'm missing out on some really intense and cool character moments because we couldn't afford to do the cool cinematic for them. I don't necessarily like that. That ends up feeling strange. Especially when it's to this extent, right? Like, it's not like we played an 8-hour game and, you know, half the cutscenes were those cutscenes. It's like 10% or something maybe, right? That at that point it feels like it's a bit pointless because you kind of get accustomed to and end up expecting to or wanting those special cutscenes, but then you just don't get them because for the most part it's just isometric, top down. The characters just kind of like standing there talking at each other, right? So that's kind of a little bit sucky, I think. We can talk about the story when I come back with my food, and then we'll talk about the gameplay, and then we'll watch something. So, here's the mid review BRB, everyone. I'll be back in 2. Oh, it's a meme from this morning. All right, we're back to it, everyone. So after thinking about the cinematics, the from a story perspective, I think, like I said, I think that the game does. It does a lot of right things in the story, but I think it requires special investment, or empathy, or emotion, or I don't know how to describe it. Like you need to put effort into the game yourself in order to kind of be invested in the story because of how it's told, right? You wake up and your brother's there, and then they do kind of the setup for how much your brother cares about you and how much you care about him, and then your brother disappears, and then you spend half the game looking for your brother. And when you find him, instant dead. He dies. Dead. He gets stabbed. He's gone. It's more than half the game even. We spent... Well, we'll say roughly half the game. No, it's more than half the game. You spend like let's say 3/4 of the game looking for a brother. You find him, he instantly dies, and there's very little emotional payoff there too. Because the scene is just, he gets stabbed, you know, you try to rescue him, he gets stabbed in the side, and he lies there and then he dies. That's it. We don't have any, like, scene where it's kind of like him struggling and we're trying to get out with him and we can't, and, you know, he bleeds that slowly. It's just like, he just kind of dies really quickly, which I think feels a little bit anticlimactic and stuff like that, right? Like, you can compare it a bit to something like The Last of Us Part 1, right? If you have the initiating sequence for Last of Us Part 1, that has kind of like, it kind of has the same story they're trying to tell there, but it's like 3 minutes long and it's more emotional somehow, right? You would think that if you invest 5-6 hours into the story, then the emotional payoff should be higher than something another game can do in 3 hours, right? Or in 3 minutes. I think that's, you know, and I'm not saying that's not an emotional scene. I'm saying that in order for that to be emotional, you kind of have to build into it yourself, right? The game doesn't give you, you know, it gives you the Legos, and then you have to put the Legos together. It doesn't put the Legos together for you, which a lot of games or stories do. That's not necessarily bad or good. It's bad for me because it doesn't work for me, but so for some people that might lead to more emotional experiences, I guess. Though I didn't feel like there was much emotional payoff to your brother dying, which, you know, that should probably be like peak emotional payoff. And I think the rest of the story kind of suffers from the same thing too. Like, we kind of have the problem where our character is already like an established person in the world, and we see everything through her and other established characters. So nothing is really new, and everything is something from before, right? If you look at something like The Last of Us, again, we can bring it back to The Last of Us, because, you know, maybe similar vibes a little bit. You have Joel, who is an established character in the world, and Tess, but then you also have Ellie, who isn't an established character in the world, right? And then you can kind of like, they kind of play off each other to learn about each other and to learn about the world and to learn about different perspectives. And we don't really have that in this. We have characters that already know each other, and they work together. We're supposed to kind of like, you know, we're supposed to engage with their already predefined bond and their predefined tension in that bond, but we weren't part of that at all. So just kind of like, you know, you have to just kind of build. You have to choose to live into it, which can be a little bit difficult for people, myself included, right? Everything in the game has already happened. All the stories already happened, right? All the character building, all the important moments in these people's lives, except for what's happening right now in the game, it's already happened, right? Like, everything is just built on things that have happened previous that we were not part of. And I think stories like that end up not hitting as hard for me personally, and probably for a lot of other people too, I would assume. Like all the tension between no, it's not Ava, it's something like that though. What was her face? Avery. Avery? It's just Avery. Eriksholm. What's her name? Eriksholm. Alva. All the like tension that your character has with Alva, all the story, all that build up is just like, oh, you remember in the past when you left us and blah 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 blah, right? It's all you remember that thing that happened in the past, remember that thing that happened in the past, the past, the past, the past. Oh, this thing with your brother in the past, your past, the past, right? It's all just in the past. And you arguably go through the story too quickly too, right? Like, it feels like the story is built to be like a full novel, but then it's kind of like a novella or whatever, like a short story, where we spend the entire start of the game looking for a brother. That's like 3/4 of the game. And then when we find out that her brother died, we're like, we gotta find the thing that he had. And that's one chapter, we find the thing he had. And then we're like, we gotta go kill the mayor. And that's like the game. You know, there's no time to build up or set up anything, because everything's happening so quickly. And then it's like, oh, the Sakin are coming. And the mayor's gonna let the Sakin in, but we don't have any, like, build up for the Sakin either. If you avoid reading all the notes, which I would argue in games like this where they're optional, that should be optional lore. You don't really have any point of reference for who they really are, what's even going on with them. And I would argue in the main story you don't even then, right? You're just gonna get the vague impression that they're not good people, but I mean, who even knows, right? I don't even know that much about them, even having read most of the notes. That feels like maybe like almost like a missing part of the story, right? It feels like a part of the story that just kind of gets introduced, and it does. It gets introduced like in the last 30 minutes, and then you deal with it, and then it's done, right? So yeah, I would say like, just like the story has all this stuff that it needs to be a good story, but it's told in one of these kind of a bit contrived and a bit fast ways, where it's a bit harder to engage with it. And that's probably like a budgetary thing too, right? Like, they only have, you know, this is their first game, it's the first game they're making. They only have a certain amount of time, and also they can only invest people for a certain amount of time too, right? Like, no one's playing this game. The chance of someone playing this game for 40 hours, 50 hours, 60 hours, very slim. If they can capture you with this short 8-hour story, then they can maybe sell you on future games or engage you to be more interested in other things that they're doing, right? So that makes sense, but maybe they should have told a different story for the first one. Maybe something a bit smaller, maybe something a bit shorter, maybe a prologue to this story, you know? And with that said, though, I think the world building that they do is really good. I was engaged in the world, and I think the world was interesting, and I'd love to see more in this world. So and the characters were excellently written. Like, there's great and acted, great acting, great writing from like just like a pure character perspective. I don't think there was any like plot holes or moments where like felt like the characters weren't acting like themselves and like fell out of the story. So from that perspective, great, right? I think maybe just wrong story for this format. Maybe wrong story for this type of storytelling. For this length, maybe. And yeah, from a gameplay perspective, I think the gameplay in this is good. It's it does what it's supposed to do. They keep kind of refreshing you with new mechanics and new people. So it doesn't get super boring at any point. But I would still say that, like, kind of similar to the story, it's one of those things where it's like, ooh, while the gameplay is good, they're not doing anything new here. In my opinion, nothing here is new or interesting or mind-blowing, right? It's just kind of the same stuff you've seen in similar games like this before and before and before and before. Very competently made, very nicely done. Good integration to mechanics, good way to kind of keep you on your toes. I was always intrigued solving the puzzles. It always felt satisfying to do so, but they're not doing anything new here. And arguably, games that were released 20 years ago, like Commandos, right? How old is Commandos at this point? Commandos games release date. Yeah, like, you know, 26 years ago. More than that. Yeah, 1998. 1999. So you know, 20 plus years ago, games that were released, you know, 20 years ago have more advanced mechanics than this game does, and arguably they're different types of games, right? But it's been a while since I've played Commandos, but in Commandos, I believe you have a lot more characters that have a lot more tools, and you have a lot more dynamic ability to engage with the maps, right? This is very linear, and that's fine. But in something like Commandos, you're like, you have all of these tools and all these things you can do, and you have this huge map, and then you just kind of go at it, and you're like, oh, what if I take this guy out, and I'll use this ability here, and I can throw some dynamite over there and explode that, and I can put this guy's clothes on to pretend I'm one of them, and then get behind this dude, and, you know, there's a lot of stuff like that, where it's significantly more dynamic and significantly more advanced. And that's a 26-year-old game compared to this, right? So it's kind of hard not to be like, you know, have you learned anything from that? And we also have stuff like Shadow Tactics, right? I haven't played Shadow Tactics on stream. I want to do that at some point. But Shadow Tactics is another game that does a similar thing, but it's significantly more advanced. So, you know, what are we really getting? Like, the only thing we're getting from this game that it does differently are the super high fidelity, incredibly animated cutscenes, but they're very, very sparse in the game. So, let's, oh, music in the game is actually really good. I really like the music. Probably not gonna listen to any of it, like, when I'm not streaming it, but I think that the main theme, at least, is pretty good. Alright, let's just add the game to all our different lists here. Let's see. We have our 2026 games. Eriksholm. I wonder what the negative reviews on Steam have to say about... this game has overwhelmingly positive reviews on Steam, I think. Which I would argue probably deserved. But I do wonder what... Oh, I guess also worth noting, this game is expensive for this sort of a game. This is what I would say, also like 45 euros, $45-ish. I think that's very, very expensive for this game. I bought it on sale, and I think 20-ish euros is a good price for this quality and this length of gameplay. 45 euros for this, though, that would upset me. If I bought this for full price, no, that would not be my jam. 42 still, I think it's way too much. Wonderful as long as you don't play it. I don't know what that means. It has very few negative reviews, though. I mean, it's. I agree that it should be. I agree with the overwhelming positive here. Like, I leave this with a positive. Eriksholm. Oh, I got to update. Open critic Eriksholm. Let's see. We played this game for 9.2 hours. I don't have the how long to beat, but I won't tell that now because I have food. Alright, on the Enda rating scale, we have 10 flawless masterpiece, 9 everyone should play this, 8 great experience worth playing, 7 good play if it sounds fun, 6 alright play like the genre, 5 average, 4 still functioning game, 3 barely worth playing, 2 everyone should avoid this, 1 no redeemable qualities. And I think I'm stuck somewhere between a 6 and a 7 here. You know, the big thing for me when I think about rating a game is how likely I'm to recommend other people play the game, right? So for me, a 7 is where I would begin recommending the game to like a decent amount of people, and 8 is like I would be like anyone, like, hey, you should play this game. A 9 is you know, that's literally like I will tell everyone to go play the game. But, like, I'm struggling. Do I give the game like a straight 7? Do I give it like a 6, 9? Is this a game that transcends its genre, right? Like, what is a genre? It's an isometric story game. Does this game transcend the isometric story game to the point where you say, play this if it sounds like fun to you? Yeah, I think that's probably fair for it. I think I'm really like either high sevens or like a seven. Oh, sorry, high sixes or like a seven, and I'm not sure where to put it. I think I'd put this on my scale. I think I'd give this like a I'll give this like a 6.8 on my scale. I think that's fair for it. I think the game is almost close enough to transcend the genre to where I would put it in the high sixes. But I don't think it's good enough that you recommend people play this if they aren't interested in the genre at all necessarily. And I think it leaves enough to be wanted that I wouldn't put it in the sevens quite. Let's look at the reviewers. An 8? Sure. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Alright. That's it for Eriksholm, everyone. I have another game loaded up, but before we do that, I gotta eat some food. And while we eat food,